Okay, so we are starting our second session of this e-conference. Now, uh, in this session, we will having our honorable uh, guest chairperson, Mr. Devdutt Ghosh Thakur, and we have our guest speakers Asif Munirud Choudhury, Mr. Rafiqul Islam, Suprata Sen, Rupa Sanyal, Santosh Kumar, Farzana Shamim, Alokesh Das, Rashmi Verma, and Jayanti Chatterjee Mitra. So I will request all the presenters to please be ready with their presentations. Now I'm starting the program. So good afternoon to all the honorable guests and our honorable chairperson and all dear participants. I'm Ananya Chatterjee, executive member of Friends of Environment India, will host this session. Now we will begin this session of the day two, second session. Uh, Now I would like to welcome our chairperson, Mr. Devdutt Ghosh Thakur, to chair the session. Now, before sir begins the session, I would like to say a few words about him. So Dr. Devdutt Ghosh Thakur retired as chief reporter Anand Bazar Potrika in 2018. Yet he has been associated with several academic projects. He has also taught in the Vishwabharati University, Bolpur from 2001 to 2003. He has also taught physiology in Hooghly Motion College, Chuchura from 2003 to 2005. He was associated with the Presidency College, Kolkata, for more than a decade, where he taught physiology and environmental system management to postgraduate students. He completed his schooling from Ramakrishna Mission Vidyalaya Narendrapur, graduated in Physiology Honours from Presidency College, Kolkata. He completed his post-graduation in Physiology from the University of Calcutta. He holds a doctorate degree in Physiology from the University of Calcutta. Now currently he is acting as a guest faculty in the prestigious Ramakrishna Mission Vidyalaya Narendrapur, where he teaches life science. He is also associated with Ramakrishna Mission Seva Pratishthan as a faculty of Bachelor of Physiotherapy, Critical Care Technology and Operation Theatre Technology, where he teaches physiology, biophysics, community health and environment pollution. He is a guest faculty in Masharada College of Nursing, where he teaches physiology for BSc Nursing. He has established his footprints in several arenas. Well, I would like to mention that all the presenters are allocated with 10 minutes time to present their presentations. So I will request them to complete it within the allocated time. Now, sir, I'm handing over this session to you. The mic is over to you, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have been listening the first session till since 10 a.m. today, and Bangladesh time it is I think 10:30. So it was a very interesting session, and I think that I have just I've been going through the topics to be discussed here in this session. Where obviously very interesting. Some topics are on Sundarbans and some topics on plastic pollution. So these are two very current things to be discussed now, because we have seen that two cyclones in the two consecutive years. One is Amphan in 2020 and Yas in 2021 has devastated some of the areas of West Bengal, and for Amphan has have also affected some portions of Bangladesh. So we know we everybody we know how this Sundarban is acting as a wall or a wall of protection to the city of Calcutta and the other big cities of India and Bangladesh against these devastating cyclones. So it is our duty to protect Sundarban, its ecology and its pollution. Last year I was in a conference mainly for the ecological balance in the of the Sundarban of the Bangladesh region. And most of the papers, the researchers, they have discussed about the um, river pollution in the Bangladesh area, the splitting of oils, and how this has been killing the mangrove forest there. So in our this side of Sundarban in our West Bengal area, our main pollution is the encroachment of the Sundarban forest area. And you everybody, you all of you know that the um, source of sweet water in the Sundarban areas of both East Coast, West Bengal and Bangladesh is going down day by day, and that have affected the livelihood of the mangroves. And once I have seen once satellite picture that at the middle of the Sundarban there is some uh, baldness. Um, so that means the height of the mangroves there in that part was very dwarf. So within this is an ecological change and the adaptation process of this mangrove. So because all the rivers riverbeds, they are enclosed by the fisheries and by the and by other purposes. So we have to be very careful to protect these streams that are bringing sweet water to the Sundarban. So I will not talk so much, because in this session there will be another two speakers will speak who didn't speak in the first session due to some technical difficulties. So I am handing over the microphone to the host, and please continue. There are two guest speakers here, Ashif Munir Chaudhary and Rafiqul Islam. So I would like Asif Munir Chaudhary to present his paper first. Please maintain the
Sir,
time 10 minutes.
sir, I'm interrupting once.
Yeah.
I would like to request the next presenter, Dr. Shuprata Sen, who is Associate Professor of Department of Botany, Ashutosh College, to be ready with his presentation and let us know whether he's ready or not in the chat box. Thank you.
Honorable Chairperson and all the guests, good afternoon from my part. I think you can hear me. Is it clear?
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. So first of all, it's me, Asif Moinu Chaudhary, who is an adjunct faculty at University of Borishal. And also, I am working like a consultant with so many organizations, and for the Borishal division, one of the 7 division of Bangladesh, I am mentoring like more than 100 youth organizations, volunteering, and most of these organizations, they are like working on climate change aspects. So I have the opportunity to work both in research project and other projects, youth-based volunteer projects, to in not only in university but outside of university also. So there is one that is, can you please go to the first slide? Yeah. So that is the one of the volunteer named Shathi Akhtar. She has got the opportunity to get some funding from British Council Hunger Project for COP26, and that was of menstrual hygiene management. And it is not directly linked to Sundarban, but it's like I have conducted this research in some part of mangrove areas, not in Sundarban, but other parts near to the mangrove areas, localities of mangrove areas. And in fact, the inside the Sundarban, the inhabitants, especially the women, they are suffering similar sort of problems. And as this is related to climate change, so that's why I'm presenting this one. So the title of this one is The Consequences of Saline Water Usage on Menstrual Hygiene Management, that is MHM. The study in context of southern coastal areas of Bangladesh, mainly it is a particular district named Jhalokati, and there was 3 upatelas. So me was the supervisor, and the volunteer was Shati Akhtar and her group. So please go to the next slide. Maybe I can try from my one. Let me try if I can try from my. Yes.
Okay, sir. If it is, then let's stop sharing, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Can you see it?
Yes. Yes, sir. It is visible, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. That's even better. So before going to the in depth of saltwater in salinity, so we have to know some basic aspects like saline water intrusion. As we all know, that saline water intrusion is the movement of saline water into fresh groundwater and freshwater aquifers. And factors behind this saline water intrusion are like certain human activities, groundwater pumping, water, and also due to climate change, sea level rise, and also that can be worsened due to extreme events like hurricane and storm surges. So what is called salinity? So before going to the salinity problems, we need to know about salinity, the amount of dissolved salts that are present in water. Dissolved salts like sodium and chloride.
Sorry, sir, for interrupting, sir. Your slides are not moving, sir. It is in on stuck on slide 2, sir.
Okay. Maybe in that case you should share. That was the problem. That was I asked, requested you to share. Can you please share from your your side?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Chinmoy, can you hear me, Chinmoy?
Yes.
Please share the slide again, please.
Please start the slide sharing.
Yes, it is visible. Okay, make it full.
So go to the third slide. Yeah. So saltwater intrusion, I have already told that saltwater intrusion, movement of saline water into fresh groundwater or freshwater aquifers, causing contamination of fresh water. And this is a natural process which can lead to groundwater quality degradation. Next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, what is called salinity? The term salinity refers, the term salinity is like amount of dissolved salt, mainly sodium and chloride, sodium, magnesium, sulfate ions, and it is measured depending on conductivity and total dissolved solids and other water quality parameters. Next slide. So what causes salinity in the rivers? Primary salinity is caused by natural process such as accumulation of salt from rainfall over many thousands of years. But the river salinity is caused by saline discharges from dry land, irrigation, and urban salinity into creeks and rivers. And over time, as salinity within catchment worsens, the quality of rivers water declines and becoming more and more saline. Next, please. So for coastal river salinity, the main driving forces are climate change impacts, obviously, and the below mentioned one, or most of them are climate change impacts. First of all, geographic location that is not directly linked to climate change, but when if we consider the geographic location, the areas which are near to the vicinity of coast or near or coastal areas, they are more vulnerable towards climate change effects. Again, sea level rise, due to sea level rise, obviously the coastal areas are vulnerable. I mean, the other, all the factors like tidal inundation, cyclone and storm surges, coastal erosion and damages of embankments, backwater, these all are vulnerable towards climate change. And obviously, as these are located, if the places are located near the coast or coastal areas, this all phenomenon can took place. And another one is backwater effect and droughty condition. Backwater effect, like what can happen that in dry, especially in dry season, if upstream water flow is stopped, fresh water flow, then what can happen that from the downstream, like from sea, water surges towards the inner inner areas of the country, especially in case of Bangladesh. In dry season this year, it happened that there was for last 30 years or 40 years, there was the recorded minimum amount of rainfall, and that's why in April this month, this year, and that causes a serious amount of saline water intrusion, and subsequently that made the condition more terrific. And also changes in groundwater flow. If the groundwater aquifer is not replenished directly by fresh water, then it can happen that more saline water will intrude to, from the sea. Next slide, please. Next slide. Hello. Next slide. Host. Okay, salinity in coastal rivers of Bangladesh. As Bangladesh belongs to one of the seaside countries, the adverse impact of saltwater is significant. This scenario of gradual salinity intrusion in the coastal area of Bangladesh is very threatening to the primary production system, coastal biodiversity, and human health. And this cause, please go to the previous slide, salinity in coastal rivers of Bangladesh. Yes. So salinity of water can be measured and described by water quality parameters. I have already mentioned, like pH, electric conductivity, and total dissolved solids. And the following table can compare the irrigation water quality and salinity level of coastal rivers in Bangladesh. If we see in the table that the general irrigation standards, it is already a bit higher compared to the world standards. Like pH should be 6.5 to 8.4. Electric electric conductivity should be 1200 microsiemens per centimeter. Total dissolved solid should be 2100 milligram per liter, and sodium absorption ratio should be 0 to 3. But if we see the values found in coastal rivers of Bangladesh, in that was conducted in the year 2018 in 19 rivers of Bangladesh, 19 coastal rivers, it has found the range in dry season, the pH was 7.5 to 11. That was quite high. Also in wet season, it was 6.2 to 8.59. I mean, that is acceptable. But in case of EC, which is really measures the salinity, it was quite high in both dry and wet season. In dry season, it was 253 to 57,000. 300, and in wet season is 109.4 to 34,800. So in both cases, those were not suitable. Those water were not suitable for irrigation purpose even, or for other purposes. I mentioning here irrigation purpose because irrigation purpose, the water for irrigation purpose definitely used for other purposes also, except for potable or drinking purpose. And sodium absorption ratios was also much higher. So please next slide. So next slide, please. So if we consider now we have to understand the menstrual hygiene management. What is menstrual hygiene management? If we know, menstrual hygiene management is an essential aspect of hygiene for women and adolescent girls between menarche and menopause, especially within the age range of 12 to 45 or 48, something like that. And despite being an important issue concerning women and girls in the menstruating age group, MHM is often overlooked in post-disaster responses, especially in consideration of Bangladesh or such other developing or some like countries. So aspects like using soap and water for washing the body as required and having access to facilities to dispose of used menstrual management materials is important for menstrual hygiene management, and these aspects are always overlooked, and so many other aspects. Next slide, please. So next slide. So if we consider MHM in Bangladesh context in whole Bangladesh, it is one research from 2017. Then 80 to 86% of women and adolescent girls use clothes, not sanitary pads. 10% of the adolescent girls use disposable pads. 25% of students do not go to school during menstruation. 1% of schools have disposal facilities for menstrual pads clothes. 36% of students know about menstruation before menarche, and 89% of students store their clothes in hidden places. So, I mean, in all contexts, the situation is not so good one. So, please next slide. So, if we consider the previous one was about the whole country, but if we consider only about coastal areas, there is not that much of data or researches about the menstrual hygiene. And some 2 or 3 I have found. There I have found that especially that the problems require that especially the girls of remote coastal areas, they have a context of shame and silence due to social taboo. I mean, they don't want to share, even not, it was found even they don't want to share even with, especially the woman with their family, or in fact with their husband in some cases as well. And financial problem, because this is coastal remote areas always prevailing, and problem regarding usage of used clothes, that is also a big problem. That's the thing. So next slide, please. Next slide. So the objective of this study was to understand the current status of MHM in coastal areas and to understand the consequences of using saline water in menstrual hygiene management. Okay, next. So methodology, project area, as I have conducted this project with with one of my volunteer, and her project name she given like Suhashi's Social Action Project. It's also include distribution of sanitary pad also, but I have mainly conducted here the baseline survey and that research. And the study areas in the map you can see near to the Bay of Bengal, in 3 upazelas of Jhalokati Shodor Upazela in Jhalokati district. Next. And next, please. And we conducted, next slide. Okay. We conducted some research baseline survey and focus group discussion and later on data analysis. The survey was conducted with 200 women within the age range of 12 to 45 years, and 3 focus group discussion also were conducted. Now the result part, next please. So the percentage group, if we as we conducted, there was 53% where with the age range of 31 to 45 years, and 21% were mainly teenagers. The rest were of 20 to 30 years. Next. Here comes next the main results. Next, please. Okay. So when we asked about that, if they know about climate change and salinity intrusion, especially the women, and what can be the effect of climate change, most of the women, they actually know what is climate change. I mean, somehow they know. Some of the women, they don't know even the term, but they know what is the impact, how it is changing. Especially most of the responded like weather. I mean, they don't know about that much of the term about climate or climate change. Mostly they know about, they just confuse the term with climate change with weather. But the aspects they know very well. And they also informed us that um, uh, there is so many problems in creating in their areas salinity and temperature raising in for last 5 years, and also storm surges are occurring more and more in their area. Next. Next slide. And now, if they are using any sort of saline water for their menstrual hygiene purpose or other daily use purpose, yes, there was like especially 129 women. They actually don't use that much, but 71 use directly. From 200 those respondents, 71 women use water directly for cooking. I mean, you can imagine that water from river, 71 person is like more than 35%. So it's quite a huge number. And in the case of to take bath, most of them take bath outside. I mean, either in ponds or river. It's like almost like 90%. And if they noticed any problem in taking bath, or if they have any diseases for taking bath, yes, they have had it. It's quite a huge number. More than 80% have these problems. Okay, next slide. And some behavioral status considering menstrual hygiene. The question was asked because they are using saline water for, in fact, for washing in menstrual hygiene cases or for some other purpose. First we asked if they use the sanitary pads, and it was like 95% women don't use sanitary pads. And actually 95%, in fact, we can say that no one use actually sanitary pad. In fact, 95% use clothes, and some other use tissues, not even clothes, as they don't have the facility or financial problems. And in fact, they use those clothes, they just wash it and use it. I mean, 4 to 5 times or 6 times, even for 7 times, or some are until it is, if it is not green, they use it. I mean, like 6 or 7 times, 7 months, or in fact for 1 year they use those clothes also. And that is really creating problem, a skin problem and some other like itching problem with them. And if they have any idea of disposing or just burying those the things, in fact no one is burying, and in fact most of them have no ideas of burying those things. So next slide, please. Okay, and the consequences of menstrual hygiene behavior, what happens with them, or what health problems. In that case, 100% of the women, they feel vaginal irritation after using clothes. So that was really a huge problem. And also they have other skin diseases also. In most of the cases, 36 women, they replied with they have skin diseases, and some have no idea. So they have also seasonal variation problem, that in wet season they have more problem compared to summer or dry season. And yes, obviously some of the women, it's like 25%, near to 25% women, they face problems using those washed clothes. Okay. So next one, please. And what we have done focus group discussion. There we have got some general statements that most of them have no idea of using the saline water can have impact on their reproductive health. What sort of particular diseases can attack if saline water use? They also don't know about this about these things. They have the social taboo in issues, like not to share with someone else, and that is
Excuse
also
me,
due to
sir.
from.
You are only
Please.
left with 1 minute time.
But repeating next, it kills my 2 minutes. Okay, I will try to
Okay.
make it quicker. Okay. And social taboo, financial crisis, and they don't want to tell anyone, keep it a secret. If she gets a stain, people will laugh at her. That is also social taboo. Men should not know. Proper method of dispose, they don't know. So that so many things and aspects came out of this statement. So next slide, please. Next. So problems regarding reusing of clothes are like mainly two things, that is skin disease and vaginal irritation. Possible reason for problem might be this normal vaginal pH should be in the range of between 3.8 and 4.5. That is due to the lactobacilli bacteria live in the vagina, and secrete lactic acid and hydrogen peroxide, which give it the acidic pH level. But if pH is changed due to more than 5 or less than 3.5, if lactobacilli is more in population, or if it is for due to overgrowth, or if it is too low, overgrowth of bacteria, overpopulation, in both cases that can have problem, and that like skin diseases and irritation. Next slide, please. So imbalance problem, pH, like infections, reduction in lactic acid secretion, then attacked by other bacteria or viruses. In fact, some cases it was found that HIV viruses can more actively work if pH level is more than 5. And for lower pH, in case of lower pH, yeast or fungal infection can happen. What we have found that they use those, they don't properly dry those things, and they dry mainly in cool, dark, and wet places. So definitely that can have fungal growth, and if they reuse it, that can have fungal infection. So that was the reason. Next slide, please. So next slide. So pH can be changed due to salinity. Usually pH does not change that much due to salinity, but in fact it was found that pH lowers sometimes with salinity. But if the saline water having their inherited pH, then it can have impact. And in other ways, salinity can impact, like bathing in saline water is not good for dried skin. People who have dried skin, it's not good. And reusing clothes after washing in salt water can help the fungal growth. And last of all, excess salt in used dry clothes can create itching and make the genitals more dry. So next slide, last slide, please. So finally, we can say that more research need to be conducted on these issues. And I think the research group, not only social scientists, is doctors, medical scientists, and our who are microbiologists, that those people should come together and do the researches. Research should be done on saline water use and vaginal pH relationship, the main MHM related diseases, considering coastal areas and possible reasons behind those, vaginal microbial activity researches. The quality of reused clothes also should be measured, and a study on the effect of sanitary pad using and awareness raising should be done. So that was my presentation. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, that one, the project, there is a 3 minutes YouTube video. If you permit, or if you have time, we can you can show it. Otherwise, at the later of the program, you can show it. So what is your decision, respected chairman and the host? It's a 3-minute video, YouTube, over the project.
Please show it at the end, if time permits, because there are so many speakers.
Thank you very much. So please go to the link in the next slide. Yeah, this one, YouTube. Can you go to the link? No, the previous one, the YouTube link. Yeah, can you show? Click the YouTube link and go to the slide or YouTube.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, can we share this link to our Google Meet chat box so that they can go and see this thing?
Yeah, that can be done also.
So they can see this thing accordingly, sir. So that will be helpful for us for managing the time, sir, if you don't mind, sir.
Okay, as you want, no problem. So that was the thing.
Okay. So sir, we are putting it to our chat box, sir.
Now, host, please call the next speaker.
Yes, sir. So, by taking your permission, I would like to call our next speaker, Muhammad Rafiqul Islam, Chief Executive and Program Coordinator, ASG Germany. So, sir, I will request you to present your presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, 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 please.
Thank you, Mr. Ghosh Thakur and Miss Chatterjee, for giving me the privilege to say something here. Actually, this is an e-conference, and I am not a researcher. Rather, I can say that I am a development worker. I am development not with the research background. So I would like to say that today I will rather hear the valuable presentations from the researchers from Bangladesh, India, and other part of Germany, probably. I would like to say something about our action points that might be helpful for ASG Germany and also the participants who are there. So I will like to say some 2-3 words about the organization. First is ASG Germany is a German-based organization presently working in Germany, Nepal. We have programs in Nepal, Cambodia, West Bengal, India, and also in Bangladesh. We have in West Bengal our partner called Right Track. Though we don't have any current project yet now, but we are going to start very soon with them. But with the rest of the countries like Bangladesh, Germany, Nepal, and Cambodia, we have programs. We work on we have 4 working areas, and one of them is environmental protection and climate change issues. In the chat box, I put our website and Facebook page. If you are interested, you can see. So why I am here? Because I am here to explore some working opportunities, especially with those who want to work as an individual or as an organization, like Friends of Environment or maybe Termite Society, whether we can work together. Because I can say that we have huge financial supports we can have from Germany, from different ministries, because Germany is one of the country who are very, very much environmentally concerned. And after the recent floods which devastated Germany, now the citizens' pressure on the government is also very tremendous, that Germany should work and spread its contribution all over the world, not only within Germany, to protect the environment and reduce the climate change impacts. In that case, I can say that ASG Germany, we are not a donor agency, but we work as a consortium partners from Nepal, from Bangladesh, from India, from Cambodia. Our partners develop project proposals and they submit to us, and we rewrite them, represent them from Germans in the light of German culture. Where we can say that we nurturing them and present them to the different organizations, funding organization, ministries, research institutes. So in that cases, if you the people have an organization or research institute, please come forward. Please come forward to submit your proposals, ideas, and then we can forward them to there, so that your dream, your research can be implemented at your local area. Only one request in that case is that the formal registration, you know that international cooperation needs official registrations, because we work with small organizations in Bangladesh and India, especially West Bengal. yeah, our experience is that they have excellent community-based programs. They have a very excellent focus on their work, but we cannot go for them for official assistance because they are not officially registered. I repeatedly, even in the events of Termite Society, I said that for the sustainability, whether you like it or not, finance is a important issue. You cannot ignore it. You cannot ignore it. So if you have a formal registration, a good channel to transfer the international cooperation to a local area, please come forward with your ideas and we can have and implement excellent programs in your country, in your local area. Thank you so much.
Next speaker, please. Host.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, sir, with your permission, I would like to call our next speaker. Uh, I would like to call Dr. Supatra Sen, Associate Professor, Department of Botany, Ashutosh College, to present his presentation.
Madam, please unmute.
Dr. Supatra Sen, are you there? Please unmute yourself and present your presentation.
Ma'am, please unmute yourself, ma'am. It is muted.
Dr. Supatra Sen, are you
Yes,
there?
can you hear
Yes.
me?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Is the slide visible?
No, ma'am.
Is the slide visible?
No, ma'am.
Should the next speaker take over till I solve this?
Uh, okay, ma'am. I would like to ask our chairperson, sir. Can we go to the next one, sir? Sir, can you hear us, sir? Uh, okay, ma'am. Then we, after taking permission with our chairperson, sir, we are going to the next ones. Oh, sir is
Yes,
here. Sir is here.
yes,
So, sir,
yes.
can we?
Please, please do so.
Okay, okay, sir. Okay, sir. Ms. Chatterjee, please continue your hosting.
Okay, so I will like to call our next speaker, Dr. Rupa Shanyal, Vairav Ganguly College, West Bengal State University. Please, ma'am, you start your presentation.
Ma'am, I have some network glitch. Can you please share my presentation?
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
Am I audible and visible to all of you?
yes, ma'am, you are audible and visible too. We
Okay,
can share your presentation.
okay, thank you.
Ma'am, we have shared your presentation.
Okay, okay. Um, from the earth came herbs, and from the herbs came seeds that gave life to humans. Taittiriya Upanishad. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope all of you are safe and sound in this pandemic situation. Myself, Dr. Rupa Shandan, presenting my topic entitled Impact of Environment and Climate on Medicinal Plants. Before I start my presentation, I would like to thank the Haripur Friends of Environment in India and Termite Society of Bangladesh for giving me this opportunity to present my topic in such a wonderful platform. First off, in my topic, there are three components. One is environment, another is climate, and third one is most important, medicinal plants. I will discuss how these three components are interrelated to each other and how the environment and climate influencing the life of a crucial life of a medicinal plant. First slide. Okay. It's not visible to me. Hope all of you are visualized my presentation. Okay, yeah, it's visible. First of all, let me define what is a medicinal plant. A medicinal plant is any plant that one or more of its organ contains the substances that are responsible for the additional contains substances which is used for the therapeutic functions or that are precursor for chemopharmaceutical semisynthesis. When a plant is designated as a medicinal plant, it is implied that the same plant is useful as a drug or therapeutic agent. And we know each and every medicinal plant contains different kinds of secondary metabolites like glycoside, flavonoid, tannin, tannins, etc. Next slide, please. In developing countries, 80% of the population still use traditional folk medicines obtained from natural resources. Due to significant geographical diversity, topographical variations, India, Bangladesh, and other countries permitting the growth of different types of medicinal plants. Here is the images showing some important medicinal plants which are solely associated in our daily life, like Brahmi, Chandan, Tulsi, Neem, etc. Next slide, please. The use of medicinal plant is as old as civilization itself. The Rig Veda, written during 4500 BC to 1600 BC, is believed to be the oldest repository of human knowledge about uses of medicinal plants in Indian subcontinent. Some of the earliest records of the uses of plant as drug are found in Atharva Veda. So we all are quite familiar that medicinal plants are used for various purposes like aromatherapy, cosmetics, products, food additives from prehistoric periods. Next slide. Now moving to my next slide, that which is defining the two components of the topic, that is environment and climate. Environment, the surrounding condition in which a person, animal or plant lives, and climate, the weather condition prevailing in an area in general or overall a long period. Most plants live in areas with specific climatic conditions. So any change in climate can affect the environment of plants. Next slide. There are so many natural and man-made catastrophic causes that bring about changes of crucial life of a plant, especially the phytoconstituents of medicinal plants, alters drastically. What are the factors? These are the factors. We all know that very well. Next slide, please. Reviews data have been collected from different authentic sources, and it reveals that climate and environmental changes causing noticeable effects on life cycle and distribution of the both cultivated and wild varieties of medicinal plants, and overall impacting the quality and directionality of a plant life. Photosynthesis, transpiration, we all know about that physiological phenomenon, is an enzyme-driven vital physiological process, but at high temperature, the enzyme denatured. Similarly, humidity affects transpiration. Not only that, changing temperature, soil moisture, increased CO2 can majorly harm the life cycle of a plant. Next slide. Climatic impact also significantly noticeable in the morphology of plant. Here we can see that the growth of root gradually decreases with the increasing temperature. Next slide, please. Systematic review review study revealed that climate change factors have resulted in decrease of multiple secondary metabolites, whereas secondary metabolite synthesis, degradation, and accumulation in plant is required for the future formulation of drug, emphasizing drug. I'm just citing one example here, like 3-glycoside like digitoxin, digitoxygenine, and digoxin in Digitalis lanata, that is very frequently used in heart failure diseases. On the contrary, increases the level of digoxin and overall biological active components disbalanced. Not only that, the CN ratio has also a significant impact on plant biomass also. Next slide, please. Another important abiotic factor is ozone that reduces the rate of photosynthesis. The effect of elevated level of ozone is very significant in ginkgo biloba. Use for Alzheimer's disease has shown decrease in tannin bilobalide, isoramnicin content, and increased quercetin glycon. Next slide, please. As I have already mentioned that secondary metabolites are directly related for the therapeutic values of a medicinal plant. Here in this table, we can see that how the elevated level of ozone and CO2 changing the secondary metabolite content of some important medicinal plants. Next slide, please. Another environmental factor is heavy metals, which can alter the chemical compositions, mainly the secondary metabolites plants. In plants, secondary metabolites, very frankly, if I speak that the plant produces secondary metabolite for us for the treatment of various ailments in our diseases. Due to excess level of pollution, heavy metals, nanoparticles accumulated in soil enter into plant body and alter the general property of secondary metabolites, resultant overall pharmacological properties of plant changes. Next slide, please. In present study, it has also been noticed that high salt accumulation induces hyperosmotic stress and nutritional imbalance in medicinal plants, which also influence the phytoconstituents in plants. Here some examples are already given how that influence the plant. Next slide, please. Due to overpopulation, habitat loss, pollution, diseases, landslide, deforestation, overexploitation, overharvesting, natural calamities like earthquake, tsunami, Amphan, and several other factors, medicinal plants are under tremendous pressure, and many valuable species are under threat of extinction for their commercial value. Next slide, please. Another important matter of concern is biopiracy, that is patenting of medicinal plant resources by private companies, also a major cause for extinction of medicinal plant. Like Termuro company of US first patented neem in 1983, due to patenting, important medicinal plants are less available to the traditional people who solely dependent on plant-based healthcare system. Next slide, please. Rapid threat assessment of medicinal plants was done through conservation assessment and management prioritization, that is CAMP workshop in West Bengal. The workshop aimed at assigning the IUCN's quantitative red list system to categorize each species of a degree of endangerment based on the estimate of threat to the population and their habitat. A total of 148 plants were proposed for assessment according to the IUCN red list criteria. This table is just an example how the valuable resources are going to be endangered day by day. Next slide, please. It's a continuation of the previous slide. Next slide, please. So conservation of medicinal plant is an utmost need, and for conservation purpose, rapid understanding of the nature, status, and priority of threat assessment also important. Next slide, please. Approximately 90% of Ayurvedic preparations are based on medicinal plants, and due to high demand, several medicinal plant is undergoing threatened situation. Next slide, please. There are 4 basically scientific and social actions that has been taken for the conservation of medicinal plants. Number 1 is legislation, that is conservation of medicinal plants by executing different laws and acts. Already our government has taken lots of initiative for this purpose. Next slide, please.
Excuse me, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt. You have only 1 minute time left.
I will take only 2 minutes.
Okay, ma'am. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. In situ conservation, that is conservation of wild genetic diversity in natural habitat. Next slide, please. Third strategy of conservation is ex situ conservation, that is offsite conservation. Aim is removing part of the population from a threatened habitat and placing it in a new location, especially when in situ conservation is too difficult or impossible. Next slide, please. These are some photographs taken from our Acharya Jagadish Chandra Bose Botanical Garden from Calcutta. Next slide, please. Last but not the least, good collection practices and proper cultivation practices are also mandatory for scientific harvesting and sustainable use of medicinal plants. In order to encourage good field collection practices in medicinal plants and enhance quality and safety of these plants, NMPB, that is National Medicinal Plant Board, in collaboration with the Quality Council of India, has launched a volunteer certification scheme for medicinal plant produce, that is VCS MPP. Last slide, please. So, in conclusion, I just want to say we cannot combat the catastrophic effect of climate or natural calamities. What we can do, we have to be much more ever concerned about our own future and on which our primary health care is dependable solely. A detailed investigation and research is needed to improve our understanding of effects of climate and environment change and how it exactly altering the pharmacological properties of medicinal plants. We have to keep it in our mind that herbal medicine is the future of drug discovery pathway. So conservation along with scientific harvesting and utilization based on indigenous knowledge through proper validation is very important. Thank you so much for the listening. Thank you so much for the patience.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, sir, with your permission, I would like to call our next speaker. May I, sir?
Yes, please.
Okay. So our next speaker is Mr. Santosh Kumar, research scholar, remote sensing and GIS, MGCGV, Chitrakoot, Satna, MP, India. So, sir, are you ready to present? Sir, are you ready?
Sir, please use one device. Sir, we can share your slide, sir.
Okay, okay, sir.
Okay, okay, sir.
Please start.
Good morning to all of you. Myself, Santosh Kumar. I am a research scholar, remote sensing GIS, Mahatma Gandhi Chitrakoot Gramoday Vishwavidyalaya Chitrakoot. Now I am present my paper, groundwater assessment in Waghen watershed part of Majgaon block, Satna MP. First slide, please. Sir.
Mr. Chinmoy, please change the slide.
First slide, sir. To overcome this problem, we develop a groundwater potential map with mobilization of additional resource to meet the.
Sir, please, are you using two devices at a time, sir? Your voice is echo, sir.
Okay.
Please mute one of them.
ये अपने कर रखे हैं ना अपने
हेलो सर, आवाज आ रही है?
हाँ, अभी ठीक है सर।
Okay, thank you, sir. Remote sensing and GIS are ideal tools to mapping groundwater potential zone in high slope, rough windhand region for the spatial analysis of groundwater potential zone parameters. Groundwater has emerged as a primary domestic water source poverty reduction tool. Due to low capital cost in the most preferred source of water in India. Groundwater has made significant contribution to the growth of India's economy and overall world's economy, and has been an important catalyst for socio-economic development. It's important as a precious natural resource in the Indian contents. Can we get the more than 85% of India's rural domestic water requirement, 50% of its urban water requirement, and more than 50% of its irrigation requirement are met from groundwater sources. Next slide, please. Aim and objectives. To determine groundwater potential zones mapping, to assess and manage of groundwater resources for sustainable development of part of Baghan watershed area using ArcGIS 10.4 software. Objective of my research, to develop various thematic map like drainage density map, lineament density map, slope map, soil map, lithology map, geomorphological and land use land cover map. To depict groundwater potential zone and to study groundwater potential information, usefulness of effective identification of suitable location for extractions of water. Problem of statement. Water is one of the most essential resource and is required to various activities. Thus, finding water resources is very important. Groundwater being the most proximate can heavily help to water storage problem. Groundwater is the best source of water extraction, especially for agriculture purpose. It is very necessary to determine the amount of groundwater present in the particular area. Next slide, please. This is my study area. First, India basin, and second, state of MP, then district of Satna and MP state. Other next is Mazgaon block, which is the part of Satna district. Then we can show the topographic view of my study area, which covers two toposets, part of 63C by 12 and 63C by 16. Then satellite view of my study area, which I am use list for satellite image. Next slide, please. Here data used and methodology. I am used two satellite data list for data which is the period of November 2017 and wide view to satellite image 2018. Use SITM DAM 30 meter pixel का survey of India topographic map 63C by 12 and 63 by 16 on the 1:2 50,000 scales. This is GWIC code with UTM projection spheroid datum and WGS 84 and 44 north. Inventory sheet and data sheet collected from MAP IT, which is the state IT center of Bhopal, Madhya Pradesh. This is my flow chart by which I am calculated groundwater potential zone. There is primary data collection, primary or secondary. Primary data में topo sheets satellite image. We can extract topo sheets select of study area with subset and mosaicing. After that, satellite image that corrections of geometric corrections, radiometric corrections, and feature extractions. Then secondary data is used geology, rainfall, temperature, well point, soil, and auxiliary data. These data we can process remote sensing and GIS, then generate various thematic layers like geomorphology, slope, land use, land cover, drainage map. Then we analyze GIS through, we assign the weight and overlay ranking. That can I finalize my groundwater potential zones. Next slide, please. Here I am showing distribution of various thematic maps. First map is showing the drainage map, which is with satellite. Here 3 types of drainage order: first order, second order, and third order. Second one is showing drainage density map. Next one, lineament map and lineament density, then flow directions and slope map. Next one, please. Here I am showing the soil map and geology map. In my study area, there are basically 4 types of soil found: clay loam, sandy loam, and silty loam. In graph showing there covered the area. Next one is geology. Is a small amount of the geology, basically 2 types of granite and Vindhyan sandstone. Next one, please. Here land use, land cover map and geomorphology map. Land use, land cover map, basically agriculture land built up of forest, wasteland and water bodies. Here mostly covers 50% area is agriculture, 2% is built up, 4% is wasteland, and 37% is forest. Then geomorphology map basically divided into 5 types: mesa, scarp, pediment, pediplain, low dissected lower plateau, and Inselberg. This graph is showing that's a particular area in. Next one, please. Here a final showing map the groundwater potential zones. Here is categorized in 5 category in groundwater potential zones. So that is very good, moderate, poor, very poor. In my study area map showing a graph area, 51% area is a very good area. Then 23 is moderate, 10% is good, 5% less, or 11% is a very poor area. Next, please. Result and discussions. In this study, various groundwater potential zones for the assessment of groundwater availability in parts of Baghan watershed area, Mazgaon block, district Satna, Madhya Pradesh, have been delineated. The groundwater potential map demonstrated that the excellent groundwater potential zone in constructed in the northwest region of the study area. This indicates that soil type and slope plays a vital role in groundwater assessment. This method can be widely applied a wet area in rough topography for the exploration of suitable site. Then conclusion is the groundwater potential zone for the study area generated through integration of various thematic maps like soil geology, drainage, lineament, and slope, land use, land cover. According to the groundwater potential zone map, study categorized in 5 different types like very good, moderate, poor, and very poor. There are not enough wells, particularly the southeast of the site, to properly assess the extent and movement of contaminants. Our understanding of the site's geological characters is poor. Next one, please. There are some recommendations, additional groundwater wells to the southeast, more comprehensive analytical model of the site, additional techniques to better characterized for sites such as ground Pinedian radar. Further scope where parameters of precipitation and several terrain parameters associated with the Vindhyan region need to be also studied for better understanding of groundwater recharge in Vindhyan region. That's my acknowledge. This study was carried out on part of my research. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Now, sir, with your permission, I would like to call Dr. Supatra Sen. She has fixed her problem of slide. So, can I call, sir?
Yes, please.
Sir, can I call her?
Yes. Please go on.
Oh, okay, sir. Thank you. So, Dr. Supatra Sen, I will request you to present your slide.
Yes, my slides are with, I have sent already. Yes. So the presentation should now be visible.
Ma'am, we have shared, ma'am, already shared.
You shared? Yes, right. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone, and sorry for that technical problem due to which I could not make my presentation at the right time. So my study is entitled Combating Tropical Cyclones Eco-Restoration by Mangroves. Now, the first slide, as we know, the first slide, please. Yes, so the tropical cyclones that we are, almost habituated now, because this is becoming a regular feature with Amphan last year and Yash this year. The tropical cyclones, in fact, are a direct outcome of the climate change that is going on due to negative anthropogenic interference. So it is climate change, as we know, is largely due to humans, negative involvement or negative activity by humans. So we have seen an upsurge of tropical cyclones, and with increasing climate change, it is expected that the tropical cyclones would also increase in activity, which means that there would be increase in the number, the duration, the frequency, the size, the intensity, that is, sorry. So there we are. The tropical cyclones are looming large as a result of climate change. Next one. And India and Bangladesh in particular. The next slide, please. The next slide, please. Yes. The recent cyclones, India and Bangladesh in particular, we find a number of tropical cyclones have ravaged the two countries. Ayla in 2009, Fani in 2019, that is the last decade. 2009 to 19 was a 10-year gap. We had, not that very severe cyclones in between, but regularly since 2019, we've been having very severe cyclones. There was Bulbul, there was Amphan last year, which all of us remember very well. And of course, this year, 2021, the very severe years. The next one, the next slide. So we talk of the coastal zone management because naturally, as a result of the tropical cyclones, it's the coastal people, the coastal zone, the people and the flora and the fauna who are the most affected. So when we talk of integrated coastal zone management, that is ICZM, there are four main objectives. The protection of the coastal areas, naturally, the coastal areas, the flora, the dominating flora, in case of both the countries, India and Bangladesh, would be the mangroves, a very significant part of the vegetation of the coasts, restoration of the mangrove ecosystem, then conservation of what we already have. The mangroves are already existing there. So we need to conserve that too. And finally, the carbon absorption, because we have to keep in mind that carbon sequestration is a very important aspect of climate management. The next slide. Next slide. The next slide, please. Yes. So we have a community-based ecological mangrove restoration. The previous one, you skipped one slide. The previous one. The previous slide, please. Yes. So we have the community-based ecological mangrove restoration, which is that the local community, the people who live in the mangrove adjoining areas, they themselves are involved in its conservation and restoration. So this is a very powerful tool. This helps in empowerment of the local communities. This gives them a livelihood. This involves them in solving their own environmental, biological, social, and economic issues. So, ecological mangrove restoration, if it is community based, would be very effective. The next slide. So, for ecological restoration, we have to keep in mind a few things. That is the policy of the right place, the right tree. So, it's just not enough to plant. You have to plant the right tree at the right place. That is very important. So, even when you're making a selection of trees for planting, you have to keep in mind as to the area and the purpose that it must serve. So planning forms an important aspect, and it has to be incorporated right from the beginning. The place where you wish to plant, I mean, you build your whatever you have to build and then think of planting trees. That's not a very useful thing to do. So it has to be right at the beginning. Then there must be an integrated approach. So it's just not the task of a single community or just the mere task of the academicians or the scientists or the environmentalists, but it is rather an integrated approach where you have the involvement of the different sectors, the local councils, the municipal and the national planning bodies, the different departments, that is the administration, the academia, the scientific world, the student community, all coming together to work. And then you have systematic management, which means that it's not just enough to plant and then let them grow. You have to see that there is, careful pruning, there must be felling, and you have to see after each natural disaster the state of the tree so that it does not become a threat to the existing community. And accordingly, you manage the entire scenario. And of course, you cannot ask people to work without an incentive. So there must be performance-based incentive programs. Right? The next slide. So the determinants when we select the mangroves are the geomorphic setting, that is where it is to be placed, whether it is the deltaic region or the estuarine region, the sediment of that particular area, the tidal range, whether it's low tide or medium or high, then the location of the place, whether it is towards the sea or whether it is towards the tidal creeks in the islands or whether it is towards the tributary river mouths. So we have to, think in terms of these determinants, and only then do we select the right mangrove species. And of course, the dominant process that the planted tree will have to face, whether it is freshwater discharge, whether it is the tidal current that the plant will be facing, or whether it is the energy of the waves. So keeping all these things in mind, we have to select the suitable plants. The next one, the next slide. The next slide, please. Yes, so the preferred, the previous one. Yes, so the preferred species are now, you have the names Avicennia, Brugueria, Cereops. These are generally the preferred species because it has been seen that they are sturdy and they are resilient. So comparing the climate change effects that we have, the regular occurrence of tropical cyclones, you need mangroves which are sturdy and resilient. And we can see certain zones from the open sea to the beach forest. You can see the mangrove zonation as the Avicennia zone, followed by the Brugueria zone, followed by the Cereops zone, and finally the zone of Nipa fruticans. That is Golpata, what we call Nipa zone, Nipa fruticans, or Golpata, what we call in Bengali. The next slide.
Excuse me, ma'am. You are
Yes.
only left with 2 minutes time.
I'll finish by then.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
So it is only man who can handle, because he has largely destroyed. It is due to his negative interference that we are facing climate change, and it is only positive anthropogenic interference. Negative anthropogenic interference has brought about climate disaster. So it is only positive. He has to, solve what he has created. So he has to integrate traditional practices and local knowledge and wisdom. And with that, you must have scientific techniques and technology-aided management. All these fused together will be able to reverse the negative climate disaster that we are now facing. The next slide. And so the time is now or never. And Greta Thunberg, without whom no climate conference is now ever complete. I would like to end with her words. I want you to act. I want you to act as you would in a crisis. I want you to act as if the house is on fire, because it is. And so our planet, our green planet, our blue planet is on fire, and the time is now or never. And with that, I come to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, the conference organizers from India and Bangladesh, Friends of Environment, and the organization from Bangladesh, the Termit Society. Thank you very much for giving me this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, sir, our next speaker, Farzana Shamim, she is not present here. So, can I call our next speaker, Alokesh Dash?
Sure, sure.
Okay, I will request Mr. Alokesh Dash, Department of Plant Pathology, Polli Shikha Bhavana, Vishwabharati, to present his presentation.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are audible, sir.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, it is visible.
Yes, sir, you are visible and audible too.
Good afternoon, everybody. Respected Chairman, Chief Patron, Chief Guest, and other dignitaries present in the auspicious occasion. This is very pleasure for me to present this paper in this international e-conference. You all know about mangrove. There are many speakers who delivered this speech on Sundarban diversity, flora, fauna, and other conservation methods, reforestation, and other aspects. But my discussion about mangrove diseases is the mangrove disease is a factor for decline mangrove. This is the question in my total study: is mangrove disease cause declination of mangrove? You are all know about mangrove, that mangroves are salt-tolerant trees or shrubs that are important component of coastal ecosystem, where nutrient cycling, hydrology, coastal protection, fish and fauna production, and other ecological activities occur continuously. So mangroves are the only trees that are capable of tolerate large amount of salt in this water. But our main interest or our study area is Indian Sundarban. You know about that also, that Indian Sundarban be the World Heritage Site and biodiversity hotspot, as well as the largest mangrove of delta in the world. There are 334 species of plants, 49 species of mammals, 400 species of fishes, 320 species of birds, 53 species of reptiles, 11 species of amphibians. And they are rich in diversity, so it is the one and most powerful hotspot in this context. But our interest in the flora of Indian Sundarban. The flora of Indian Sundarban contain three types. Pemilton 1986 divide the total mangroves in three different categories. That is true mangrove, mangrove associate, and back mangrove. True mangroves are those mangroves which are almost 100% halophytic plants. Mangrove associates means which plants associate with mangrove vegetation and others. And back mangroves are in which plants or those plants grow in elevated region of this mangrove or of the Sundarban areas. There are many species which are belongs to this category. Abyssinia, that is called Bain, Posur, Dhudhul, Keura, Kakra, etc., which are very common in Indian Sundarban. But there are many threatened species, that is Gewa, Golpata, Kalubain, Bonlebu, and Lata. Why threatened? Our question is here that why the mangrove is declined time to time. Is there any is there any anthropogenic effect or any human activities or any natural effect that causes mangrove declination? So here it is a report from NASA that in this year mangroves are losses randomly. Mangrove has been threatened by deforestation for decades after decades. Agriculture, aquaculture, urban development, harvesting have caused the loss of the mangrove. But beside that, lack of awareness, irresponsibility, pollution also causes mangrove losses. In addition, a number of biotic and abiotic stresses that also are responsible for mangrove degradation. In this graph, you can see clearly that there are three parts of this graph. That is, one is global scenario, one is South Asian scenario, and another is outside South Asian scenario. In this context, you clearly see that there is the orange bar which represent the natural phenomenon, and another is there is anthropogenic phenomenon, and another is violet bar which represent the biotic or abiotic causes of the mangrove losses. But some biotic stresses are also present. Some biotic stresses like fungi, bacteria, insects. Many diseases have been documented from Bangladesh, South Africa, Philippines, including blight of alternaria, leaf spot, and wilt, which biotic stresses also causes mangrove loss. So in this scenario, these biotic stresses are not documented properly. So one South African group of scientists isolate leaf spot, gall canker, dye black canker from pathogen and isolate pathogen like Sarcospora, like Cytospora, and like Phytophthora, which cause various disease or necrotic disease in mangrove leaf spot. Here is another report. There is another report from Saudi Arabia in vine plant, that is Abyssinia marina. Here alternata causes leaf spot. You see here that the leaf are affected by leaf spot, black leaf spot, and after that the whole leaf, the severe portion of the leaf, the main portion, the maximum portion of the leaves become blackish, and the loss, so the carbon assimilation is less, so the loss of this, and they also isolated from this spot, and they also cultured them that the alternaria is identified. And another Cytospora was studied in Thailand in Malpighian DNA sequencing and in Posur plants. That also reported in 2017 that fungi also affect the mangrove. This is our pilot experiment. We collected samples from Jharkhali, Kultoli, Gosaba, and other parts of the Sundarban, and we just started. We have started the study, the TS sections, and isolate the plants also. So in our study, the total in this study, the conclusion of this study that mangrove trees and the ecosystem they create are very center of the biodiversity, as well as storm and flood protection for our coastlines. It is clear that broad study of the health of the mangrove is required in this Indian Sundarban. fungi remain relatively unexplored in this context. This is especially trumps those fungi that might cause disease of mangrove trees. More research is required for this study. Thank you all. I very much thankful to Termite Society and Horiharpur Friends of Environment for giving opportunity to say something about mangrove disease. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, now with your permission, I would like to call our next speaker. So, can I?
Please.
Okay, so our next speaker is Miss Rashmi Verma and Miss Jayanti Chatterjee Mitra. So, are you there, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. So, Dr. Rashmi Verma, you will be presenting, right?
Yes, I am presenting.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Thank you. You carry on.
Okay. It is visible?
Yes, ma'am. It is visible.
Okay. So, good afternoon, respected chairperson, sir, all the organizing member of this 2 days international conference, and all the participants. First of all, I would like to thank for giving me opportunity for the presentation. Thank you very much because you are permitted me in last time. So topic of my presentation in 2 days international conference on environment and climate change is environmental health effect of plastic waste disposal and its reduction processes. Uh, So plastic pollution in today's world become one of the most alarming environmental issue. Here is the picture which is showing alarm for dangerous present and future problem for us, because so much plastic waste, we are producing so much plastic waste. Introduction. Ever since its invention of plastic, we have produced and consumed an incredible amount of plastic globally, and esteemed 8.3 billion metric ton of plastic waste have been disposed with, 9% of that being recycled, 12% incinerated, 79% going to landfill. Each year we produce an additional over 300 million tons of plastic waste that is projected to continue, and it is a very big problem. Global production of plastic and generation of waste. Plastic production has increased 20-fold since 1964 globally. Approximately 311 million tons of plastic were produced in 2014. And by 2050, after 20-year time, possibly quadruple. Okay. International Energy Agency, World Energy Outlook in 2015 estimated that the largest application of plastic packages, 26% of overall volume, is envisaged to have continuous strong growth, which might double with 15 years, with a possibility of fourfold increase by 2050. Next, what is first of all, we have to know what is plastic. So plastic is derived from Greek word plastikos, means capable of being shaped or mold, such related to liquid, that is acquire the shape or mold. Plastic are organic polymer, and organic polymers of high molecular mass often contain other substance. They are usually synthetic and mainly derived from petrochemical. And it is also polymer. Polymers many and one means unit. When many unit joints form polymer, and polymer is macromolecule. Plastic are everywhere in our home, our school, our work, playground, park, industry, beaches, everywhere. Plastic are synthetic polymer and derived from petrofossils or petrochemicals, and it is such as when ethylene polymerized, it produces polyethylene. When styrene polymerized, it produces polystyrene. When tetrafluoroethylene polymerized, it produces polytetrafluoroethylene or Teflon. So polymer is polymeric chain is very large polymeric chain containing large polymeric chain compound, and it is a macromolecule. Two types of plastic, thermoplastic and thermoset. Thermoplastic is recyclable because when they become soft on heating and become hard on stiffen on cooling. And thermoset are non-recyclable plastic, and one set cannot be remolded or softened. Current world production rate of plastic more than 380 million tons of plastic everywhere. So lots of, we have used to see lots of picture in social media, in TV, news channel. So we are facing a very big problem of plastic nowadays. So this is, people use plastic, people throw it away, it ends up with ocean and river, fish and sea animal get trapped, fish and sea animal get hurt and die. People buy more plastic and people again use plastic, and so on. Types of plastic which are mostly used: polyethylene, high density polyethylene, polyvinyl chloride, that is PVC, low density polyethylene, polypropylene, polystyrene, and other many, bakelite, all that. Source of plastic. This is data of source of plastic: a plastic bottle, food container, water containing bottle, food bags, packaging. These are some data of what is the sources of plastic. And we used this is chips and other confectionery bags, and this is for bottle, and this is PET bottles. Size of plastic: this is micro and microplastic both. Macro, this plastic is higher 20 mm of diameter, and micro less than 5 diameter. Environmental health effect of plastic waste disposal. We are observing some other worrying trend since 1950. So huge use of plastic bottle, and we are facing big disposal problem of plastic waste. Distribution of plastic waste is associated with human population, because human population use more and more plastic because they find it very convenient. Instead of using glass bottle and other metal container, so people use and they are very much using single-use plastic, and single-use plastic become very big problem nowadays. So plastic pollute beaches and ocean. Garbage discharge into ocean. All the garbage goes to ocean, and flora and fauna of ocean get affected of it. Plastic bag litters the landscape. Land is also facing very severe problem regarding plastic. Once used, most plastic bags goes into landfill, rubbish tips. Each year more and more plastic are ending up of littering the environment. Plastic effects on human life. So plastic is the violent right from the stage production, and the major chemical goes into mankind, making the plastic are highly toxic when used water bottle, a hot food or hot water in plastic, microplastic dissolve in water, and then it find its way in our food system. And this picture is very important. The plastic used once, tortoise of the turtle the ocean forever. So this is the picture which is very showing the problem. We use plastic, and garbage goes to river and ocean, and their animal are facing the problem and cause death of animals. Some reduction processes. So plastic waste management, there are two methods. One is conventional technology, and next is new technology.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt you. You have only 2 minutes time left.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Recycling, incineration, landfilling, plasma pyrolysis is new technique, and liquid fuel and polymer blended bituminous road we are preparing for by using plastic waste, and co-processing of cement cane. These are recycling of plastic process. Landfilling is not very sanitary. Landfilling is needed, and this is incineration. New technology, plastic for fuel production, collection of plastic waste, cutting and shedding, heating and catalysis, depolymerization. So polymer is converted into again its single unit, pyrolysis, and converted into fuel. Conversion of plastic waste into liquid fuel. This is projection. And this plasma pyrolysis technology, disintegration of organic compound into gases. That's why it is plasma pyrolysis, and uses of iron excited molecule with high energy radiation. And nowadays research is going on biodegradable plastic, and biodegradable plastic um, um, preparation of biodegradable plastic, or researchers for many research are going on biodegradable production of biodegradable plastic derived from renewable biomass. Step taken by Indian government. Indian government taken step for beating plastic pollution. So with beat plastic pollution is announcement for 22 by Indian government, and pan India initiative for plastic pollution, use of recyclable in government of recyclable things in government office of Kerala, extracting plastic waste from water bottle in Kerala, and lost uh, it also from Gujarat government and Sikkim government also pan India initiative for plastic pollution. Step taken worldwide, but the world is waking up with the problem, and government are starting to act. So there are so many government are running public awareness campaign, offering incentive for recycling to introducing level and evening banning of certain product, complete ban of single use plastic. World Environment Day 2008 for beat plastic pollution is announced by United Nations, and theme of the 2018 is to reduce plastic pollution. Conclusion: plastic waste management has assumed great significance in view of this urbanization activity. Plastic waste generated by polymer manufacture, many more polymeric use, and when we supposed to the good disposal of plastic and use biodegradable plastic, we can sure minimize the plastic pollution. These are references, and this is one video. Can I play this video, which is made by our some singers of India for beating plastic pollution?
Sorry, ma'am, but
It
we
is
are running shortage of time,
it
so
is
you can give the
audible.
link.
It is audible, ma'am.
Yes, it is audible. Ma'am, can you please share the YouTube link to us, sir, ma'am, so that we can share in the chat box, because
Okay,
we are
sure.
running
I can share.
out of time.
Okay, it is in my presentation also.
Okay, and ma'am, you have one message in your in our chat box. So please go through that. So
Okay.
okay, Aruna, you
So
can
only
continue.
we will together can do it to reduce plastic pollution. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Now, sir, with your permission, I would like to call another speaker. She was there in the first session but could not present due to some technical issues. So can I call, sir?
Yes, yes, yes.
Oh, okay, okay. So, just a minute. So I would like to call
Diksha,
Diksha Dubey.
here.
Ma'am, please, I would like to call Ma'am Diksha Dubey to present. Ma'am, are
Uh,
you here?
good, good morning, ma'am. I'm Sunil Kumar Verma from the same site, as she was also a participant in my paper as I was presented. But there is, due to some technical issue, due to which she cannot able to present the paper. So on the behalf of that, I am going to present my paper. Am I audible, ma'am?
ठीक से
Uh,
देगा वो presentation? फोटो नहीं
yes.
खींच सकता था?
Okay.
No. Please, Dr. Rashmi Mishra, mute. Sorry. Okay. So, yes, you can present your
Okay.
presentation.
Okay. Is my screen is visible, ma'am?
Yes, it is visible.
Good afternoon to all the respected members present on this beautiful conference on this beautiful day. As I am Sunil Kumar Verma, going to represent my topic, climate change is India a solution to the problem or a problem to the solution? Whereas in this paper, I have discussed several statistics, just like a human index development, just like a GDP, and also the CO2 emission. I have shown in this particular paper some statistics, just like if we consume, like in India, we have around 1 billion population, in which 800 million population are spending $2 per day as our human development index. This shows, whereas 700 people is still cooking the food on the stoves. Why I'm connecting these two things? Because the human index development shows in my graph that a society just like India, just like USA, just like Canada, if the human development index increases as per the same, the annual energy consumption of that society also increases. My motive of saying this is, if we have 1 billion people or 1 billion people in our population, there are $2 per day, but still there are 700 million people who are cooking food by using some crop waste or animal residue, as we in English usually speak kanda. And still there are 400 million peoples which don't have the access of the electricity in their areas also. So where we are going through these data, as I am showing that human development index for India is very low. So the consumption of the electricity is also very low. But whereas when we look after the developed countries like United States of America, there is a human development index of an increasing rate of 1, whereas the consumption is also high. Where there is a development, there is a consumption of energy. Whereas in my second statistics, I have shown a graph regarding to the fossil fuel emission of CO2 with respect to the GDP, gross domestic products. Whereas as GDP shows that how much a country uses its own domestic products. As would like to speak, if we pursue to purchase more made in India products, our GDP grows. As per our GDP grows, our economy also increases. That also makes us very vulnerable for purchasing these fossil fuel. Okay. Whereas if we purchase more fossil fuel, more things, then at a certain time, if we don't figure out our clean energy resources or work on our renewable energy projects, then we will at a time will be came out with the no energy fossil fuel. We will come out with the no fossil fuel purchasing, as was I put. As our Indian democracy has introduced many laws from the 2005 to till date, but there is a gradual decrease. As I can say, government has invested from 2015 to 2017 350 crore for the renewable and the clean energy projects, whereas in 2018 to 2019 government only spent 100 crore, whereas at a time of 2020 and 21 we only spent our 80 crores, as well as our GDP also declines in the same ratio. In this perspective, ma'am, I would like to show that as the human development index increases, energy consumption also increases. Whereas when energy consumption increases, the GDP, our GDP process, the GDP domestic product use will get increases, which also declines the emission. As we restricted to our own energy resources, our own renewable energy resources, we also lessens the emission. And as per seen in US state, whereas GDP is same as the CO2 emission, Whereas in India, we can see as we use our GDP, our domestic products very less. So at a time, if we produce energy also, then it will be in a, if it in a government sector, then if we use our domestic product also, then our energy consumption with respect to CO2 emission will also decline. So through this, my presentation, I would like only to take a certain behalf of this conference that there are some myths which are residing around India, that India has not done nothing to promote clean and energy and energy conservation, whereas India remain a proliferate user of energy, and India is not connected over its vulnerability to climate change. These are the false things. But as far as our new energy resources and the projects are going to introduce, the people of the society need to also adopt these products to increase our GDP, to decrease our fuel consumption from the other countries, and also make it less CO2 emittive for our society also. So from this, I have concluded there are 4 points which also certain that India was not a part of a climate problem till now, is till now. But in so far future, we can see, just like nowadays, we are seeing the landslidings in Uttarakhand and all the flood and all the draining portions in the Maharashtra. Whereas second matters, the economic growth and the economic growth and the poverty line decrement will also is sustainable and comparatively to our GDP and the human development index value. And third point is the cause of climate change is the unsustainable emission of developed countries. Whereas we produce more energy resources, but we don't have any unsustainable measuring methods to sustain these CO2 emissions in our daily lifestyle. And the fourth proposal, which I have seen that made by India in respect to the future climate regime, are constructive and must be given serious consideration in any discussion on the global climate actions. That's all.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I will request our honorable chairperson to say something and close the session. Sir, the
Actually,
mic is over to you.
thank you everybody, all the speakers and the listeners. It was a fascinating session, especially the guest speaker who has delivered a lecture. This is a unique field of research. Asif Munir Choudhury is an excellent research work. So the hosts, they can take this issue in our Indian part also, because in Sundarban areas where any climate change and any disaster happen, the ladies are the females are the major victims. So this study is a eye opener to us, and we have a ray of hope from the Muhammad Rafiqul Islam of ASG Germany, who has promised that they have enough fund to fund the researches on climate changes in Sundarban and other areas. So this is a ray of hope in this. Nowadays all the news are coming, they are bad news, but this is a very good news and very positive news. So I would thank all the speakers and the organizers for their beautiful presentation, and my thanks to the organizers for conducting a beautiful session. And now we are already late, so everybody is waiting for the last session. So I will not enlarge my speech, and please be happy and be safe, and so we are concluding the second session, and this is a fantastic session that I have learned many things from this session. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank our chairperson, Dr. Debdut Ghosh Thakur, for conducting such a wonderful session. I would also like to thank our honorable guest speakers, Asif Moinoo Choudhury and Mohammad Rafiqul Islam, for enriching our knowledge with such a nice presentation. And I will also thank our speakers, Dr. Shupatra Sen, Dr. Rupa Sanyal, Santosh Kumar, Alokesh Das, Rashmi Verma, and Ms. Jayanti Chatterjee Mitra for giving such a nice presentation. Hope our participants have gained a lot of knowledge from all our respective speakers. Now it is a time for a short break, and I will request all our honorable guests and participants to join our next session by using the same link. Rather, I will tell that not to leave this session because the next session will start very soon. We have very short time, so within I think 10 to 15 minutes we will start our next session. So thank you, and the next session will be hosted by my fellow host, Arfin Sharaboni. So all of you, please stay. We will start our session soon. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
We may leave now.
Sir, yes, Mr. Kole, do you want to say something?
No, it's okay. We will start the session at sharp 2 o'clock.
Okay, 2 o'clock, right? So we have 5 minutes time.